with a lot of joy.
Now, if you're familiar with Michael Jacob and his stream, which I know most people are, the Darkest Mage, don't talk about root board defenses around him. He says it is unplayable.
As you see, Andrew Shrout try to lead off with a Celestia Guildgate, accidentally reveal a Voice of Resurgence, and then put the Celestia Guildgate into play.
Well, guess what? Finnegan has seen Voice of Resurgence before, so that's just fine. Into play comes a Voice for Shrout. We're underway here in round number 2. Finnegan with an island to go along with that Hallowed Fountain, going to pass the turn back. So we'll see what Erik is going to be up to this game, as Shrout's going to attack here for 2, play another Celestia Guildgate, and we'll see if he has a follow-up play after that.
I think Shrout may have mulligan. He looks a little short on cards.
Yeah, he does look a little short. He does have a Mistcutter Hydra in his hand, does have a Selesnya Charm as well. Also has a disgusting white bordered land.
And Voice of Resurgence, one of the big incentives to play green-white. It's good against, obviously, control decks, as they like to play a lot of instants and a lot of removal. It's also good against beatdown decks, too, because it makes blocking and trading really challenging. So Voice, one of the more powerful cards in the format. It's really, it's pretty hard to fit into decks. You need to play something pretty specific, but it's definitely worth, the price that you pay, you definitely get it returned.
Selesnya Charm at the end step. Going to allow Shrout to attack here for 2, put Finnegan down to 16. Shrout does have a copy of Advent of the Worm and Mistcutter Hydra in the grip. And if you did read Shrout's report a couple weeks ago after his runner-up finish in Indianapolis, he said that he would play 7 Advent of the Worms if he could. And I kind of echo that sentiment because this is arguably the best card in Selesnya, and it is underplayed right now because you can only play it in one deck. But boy, is it good in this one. As there is an Advent of the Worm, that's going to get dissolved. So Finnegan going to get the opportunity to scry, leaves his card on top. You see Reed Duke has joined the fray. And there's a Mistcutter Hydra. That's going to be for 3. Attack here for 5. Put Finnegan down at 11. And now Shrout's kind of crossing his fingers, hoping no Supreme Verdict is on the horizon.
And if there is a Supreme Verdict here, it appears there is. This has just been a great curve for Erik. He's basically had the perfect card at each stage of the curve here thus far.
Well, Shrout off the top, another copy of Mistcutter Hydra, going to knock Finnegan down to 8. Mistcutter Hydra, kind of a weird card, you would say, to see in the main deck of an aggressive deck. You would more think of it as a sideboard card against mono blue, but Shrout has been using this to great impact, not only 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis, but in his invitational top 8 in Vegas a couple weeks back.
And don't be fooled by this being a green-white deck. Between Boon Satyr and the haste creatures and Advent of the Word, this deck actually has a surprising amount of range. And
so now this is going to, wow, Devour Flesh there from Finnegan. You see Shrout immediately play Mistcutter Hydra for 4. Would have been a 2-turn clock, but Devour Flesh takes care of that. And it looks like Shrout has changed up his list a little bit this week because he does have an additional Mistcutter Hydra, or he was only playing 2 the previous week. So some small changes have been made to the green-white player's deck list as a Jace going to come into play. Top 3 cards here in Blood Baron of Escopa, a Temple of Deceit and another Temple. Lands to the bottom, Blood Baron predictably to the grip for Finnegan.
And Finnegan's draw has been very close to perfect in this game.
Yeah. Shrout, his cards kind of got a little stuck together there, points that out, says I may have seen the second card here, so we'll get a judge's ruling on what they would like him to do, but immediately calls the judge on himself. Looks like he's just going to have to shuffle his deck since he did see that card. So an honest mistake there from the green-white player.
And this is a place where I really like the shift in judging philosophy. 10 years ago or 12 years ago, this would have been potentially a very serious penalty for Andrew. Now it's just, there is no ill intent, no advantage was gained. Let's just fix the randomization and move play on.
So after they do finish randomizing the deck here, we'll see what does happen as Shrout does draw a card and just going to pass the turn back, I believe. So Finnegan going to untap those 4 lands. We know he has a Blood Baron of Scope in his hand, and we know that's a difficult card for Shrout's deck to be able to beat. Temple Silence going to come into play. Top card's going to go to the bottom. See how Finnegan wants to use this Jace too. Just going to tick it on up for right now. And now Blood Baron's going to be placed onto the stack and going to resolve, of course. Boon Satyr going to come into play here for Shrout. Now it's only going to be a 3-power attacker, assuming that Finnegan does remember the Jace trigger. And Shrout a little hesitant to attack, but he will. Trigger the Jace, will Finnegan, and Shrout says, I am attacking Jace, and Jace is going to bite the dust. So a step in the right direction there, as Finnegan was a little scared to block there with the Blood Baron.
But I think it's more of a statement that Erik feels he's in a pretty comfortable position here rather than really believing that Andrew necessarily has a very good trick there.
Well, Boon Satyr was going to be the trick, and it does take care of the Blood Baron. Now Finnegan going to cast a Jace yet again. Going to turn that down to 2. So here's a Thoughtseize, a Hallowed Fountain, and another copy of Jace. Jace versus, says Shrout. Jace going to go to the grip. Thoughtseize and the land are going to go to the bottom. Finnegan does have another copy of Devour Flesh in his hand, and it looks like he may cast that right now. Maybe, maybe not. He will not. So Shrout going to draw a card. Going to attack here for 4. So there is the Devour Flesh. Going to take care of the Moon Satyr. See what Shrout drew for this turn. It's going to be a called Conclave that does resolve here. So a 3/3 Centaur token going to show up to the party.
And Erik with Supreme Verdict and another Jace still left over in his hand. So a lot of very good tools left to work with.
He is sitting pretty right now.
Yes.
Finnegan going to tap all those lands. He's going to take a draw. See how he wants to use this Jace here. As you mentioned, very good draw here from Finnegan this game. Just able to really, stop Shrout at every turn as a detention sphere, an island, and a Thoughtseize are the cards that are revealed off the top here. There is D-Sphere to the hand, Thoughtseize, and the island are going to the bottom. You can see Finnegan looks pretty comfortable playing this Esper deck.
Yep. Pace of play has been very fast thus far.
There's a D-Sphere to take care of the token. Follow-up play is another copy of Jace. Going to take that on down. So here's a Dissolve. There's a Hallowed Fountain. And there's a Godless Shrine. So Counterspell versus lands. Counterspell goes to the grip. Lands to the bottom. Finnegan's turn is over. Shrout with just an Experiment 1, passing the turn back.
And Shrout looks like he's just waiting to concede, basically.
Pretty
Waiting
much.
for Erik to finally find something to lock this game up. And Erik has found a Revelations this turn, so that's... I would not be surprised if this prompted a concession.
There's a Call to Conclave off the top for Shrout. Evolution complete for Experiment 1. Centaur token going to come into play. Shrout's going to attack for 2. Going to go after Jace. Actually going to be an attack for 1. And now here will be the big revelation. That's going to be for 5. Finnegan's going up to 15, but more importantly, 5 cards are going to come to his hand. So he is refueling. We'll see what the Esper player does find. Another revelation among those cards. And we might see Mr. Shrout tap out soon, shortly.
Yep. Andrew actually made this game a little bit closer than it might have appeared at one point. He had a lot of pressure, a lot of haste creatures, but the game is now well out of control.
Supreme Verdict going to clear everything up. Jace is going to tick up to 3. Finnegan going to play a Temple of Silence. Going to look at the top of his deck. Again, as far as win conditions are concerned for Erik, he's got 2 copies of Blood Baron with Scopa and 3 copies of Elspeth. And if one of those Elspeths does come rolling off the top, that'll be just about it for Shrout, as Finnegan's going to untap all of those lands. Just looking for his win condition now. An enviable position to be in if you're the Esper player.
Another Rev, a counterspell in hand, no shortage of removal. So.
Jace happily taking down. You see a Thoughtseize, a Godless Shrine, and a Temple of Deceit. The 3 cards. Shrout says, I guess I'll split it this way. Sure. Temple going to go on the bottom. 2 cards going to go to Finnegan's hand. He's going to look like he's going to fire off a Thoughtseize. Shrout going to cast a Celestial Charm. So Shrout keeps drawing spells.
Yeah.
That's one thing for him.
They
emphatically puts that soldier into play.
They are pretty low impact at this stage of the game, to put it mildly.
Yes, they are. Hallowed Fountain going to come into play untapped. Pass the turn back, so you know what happens when an Esper player puts a dual land in play untapped and passes the turn.
Yeah. It's unlikely that he's holding up the 3rd counter spell or whatever.
Yeah. We know how this story ends. Jace is going to bite the dust here. You see Reed Duke coming in. Finnegan still at 11. Shrout at a healthy 26. So in theory, Shrout is winning.
Yeah.
See a revelation here for 6, and Shrout has said enough is enough. It's time for a change. He will concede the game. Erik Finnegan does win game number 1, your Star City Games Cleveland Standard Open champion from October, I believe. I was actually at that event with Adrian Sullivan. We watched him win with green-white. Beat Dan Musser in the finals, too. A very capable player is who Finnegan beat in the finals. So Finnegan up a game here against Andrew Shrout, playing green-white. And we'll take a look at Shrout's sideboard first, which I know you have in front of you.
3 Unflinching Courage, 2 Rootborn Defenses, 2 Last Breath, 2 Glare of Heresies, 2 Skylasher, 2 Glaring Spotlight. Woohoo! A Druid's Deliverance, and a Mistcutter Hydra.
He literally likes to just change it up every week. That's what I like about Shrout. He's always working on the deck. Glaring Spotlight, huh? That was supposed to be the end of the world. Remember?
Dude, you got an answer to Geist Sustain Draft now. What am I supposed to do? Or whatever.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That drew a lot of hoopla.
Yeah. A lot of A lot of fuss made, but not a lot of substance.
I'm really surprised the sky has still not fallen after all these predictions that it was going to.
So I expect the Mistcutter Hydra and the additional copies of Rootborn Defenses to come in this matchup. He wants Rootborn Defenses to cover against Supreme Verdict. If he has a curve involving, a Centaur token into Rootborn Defenses, it's pretty hard for the Esper deck to win unless they have a Detention Sphere somewhere along the way. So, and additional haste creatures, and Mistcutter Hydra is pretty powerful in games that go long too, because he's going to draw a lot of lands. So that's where I would expect him to go.
Yeah, Mistcutter, and we saw in that last game where Miscutter's almost stole the game. He did draw all 3 copies in his main deck. He has that 4th one to bring in his sideboard, but Mistcutter obviously very powerful here. We'll take a look at Finnegan's sideboard. Copy of Glare Heresy, 2 Doomblade, 2 Sin Collector, an Aetherling, 2 Pithing Needles, a Thoughtseize, 2 Bloodbearer with Scopa to go along with his 2 in his main deck, so he can board up to 4, and then 4 copies of Nightveil Spectre. A lot to like here as far as options are concerned. 1 Glare obviously going to come in this matchup. A lot of targets. Really like what that card can do here. 2 copies of Doomblade also going to come in. Sin Collector is a little bit more interesting. Shroud's deck does have a lot of spells. It is a 2-1.
Yeah, I know it's a weird thing. Even in matchups where there aren't a lot of creatures, almost always if someone's sideboarding against your Esper deck, they're siding in spells. And for sure if Shroud's bringing in any spells, it's probably Rootborn Defenses. So there is an argument that you bring in Sin Collector with the hope of tagging Rootborn Defenses on 3, allowing you to Supreme Verdict unchecked on 4.
Yep.
And there is also the possibility that you get to take Advent of the Worm, which is one of the most highest raw power cards in the deck. So even though Shroud's, not the type of deck that you would think of when you're thinking, who does Sin Collector target? What kind of decks does this card go after? There's an argument for bringing in here. I've seen this before.
Now, there is a 4th Thoughtseize in the sideboard here for Finnegan. Now, something a little different about his Esper deck is there's 3 Thoughtseize in the main deck. I remember at Pro Tour, Theros, Guillaume Wafotapa, started 2 Thoughtseizes in his Esper deck on his way to making top 8 of another Pro Tour, basically locking up his Hall of Fame invitation, I would believe. But within this deck, again, 3 in the main deck, and you can board in a 4th one if he would like to. And it's pretty appealing to want to start 4 Thoughtseizes against anybody, honestly. So I don't know if he's going to bring in his 4th one or not, but what I am sure of is those 2 additional copies of Bloodbearer with Scopa, those are going to come in, so he has 4 after sideboard.
Yeah, I would imagine the Thoughtseizes are, a lot of it has to do with the mono black matchup. Number 1, you want to be able to take Underworld Connections. And 2, if part of the power of your deck is Blood Baron, then you also want to be able to take Devour Flesh out of their hand and set that up in some places too. So Thoughtseize is incredibly powerful. Of course, if you run any sort of mirror match, it's great to have the main deck. But I would imagine, given the way that his deck is structured, part of that is also trying to attack mono black decks.
Now, my friends, as we do see these players shuffling up, don't forget at SCG Live, hashtag SCGCOL for your tweets. We want to hear from you as far as spoilers are concerned and everything else. Join the conversation all weekend long, as we'll be talking about everything from Born of the Gods to our leaderboard to our Players' Championship to just hangouts in Columbus.
Yeah.
Patrick and I went to a hockey game yesterday, sat in the front row pounding on the glass. Well, at least you were.
Yeah.
Since you just couldn't stop doing it.
It's too much fun.
He's a child, everyone. Experiment 1 going to start the show. Do you do that at home on the windows? Do you just pound on the glass on your windows at home?
No, because they're mine.
Oh.
That window is someone else's, so it's way different.
A Temple of Deceit here from Finnegan. Going to describe the top card to the bottom. Shrout going to draw a card, looking to evolve that Experiment 1 if he can. There is, oh boy, the old Celestian Guildgate screwing everything up. Experiment 1 going to come into the red zone. And now there are 2 of those out there, which means the Tension Sphere is looking a lot better right now.
And you're seeing one of the more annoying parts of the green-white deck, if you're a fan of it, is the mana base is just not great. It is not great mana.
The word I think of when I think of the mana base for this deck is putrid.
I think of Masks Block Constructed. Just a lot of basics of 2 different colors, a lot of sensitivity to finding both your colors and mana early.
That is a touch before my time. You see Voice Research is going to be placed on this deck. Double evolution here from the Experiment 1 and Experiment 1A. Those are going to come into the red zone, going to knock Finnegan down to 15. We'll see if Finnegan does have Detention Sphere here, as that's going to catch him up immensely. And keep in mind, one thing there that happened on Shrout's turn, no 3rd land.
Yeah, although he does have a Rootborn Defense in his hand, so if he draws that 3rd land here, he could be in a really good spot.
Let's see what Finnegan wants to do, because he's going to have to main phase to remove because of Voice Resurgence, so Experiment 1's going to bite the dust. Shrout going to untap. He'll take a draw. He's in a pretty good position right now, but he really needs a 3rd land. He does draw a Temple Garden. So that is key. As you mentioned, there is a Rootborn Defenses in his hand. He can leave that up to play around Supreme Verdict. He's going to play that tapped. Let's see what this is going to be. This is going to be called a Conclave. So Evolution will occur, and a Centaur is going to come in.
So this is also really good from Shrout in terms of playing around Supreme Verdict, because he can both regenerate, experiment one, and get a token off of Voice of Resurgence in the event of a verdict. And Erik using Doomblade last turn on one of the experiment ones might be a declaration that he doesn't even have it to begin with. So this is a much better pace of play for Shrout, obviously, for a number of reasons.
Godless Shrine going to come into play untapped. Finnegan's going to have to take 2 more points of damage. Now here's a Jace, and if you're Shrout, you got to be pretty thrilled about that. But at the same time, if you're able to make it so that whatever 4-mana spell that Esper plays isn't very relevant, you're thrilled, because Jace isn't great in this situation, and obviously Verdict is neither. And that's kind of the goal from an aggressive deck, is that when they do play one of their 4-mana spells, and they're both fantastic in Jace and Verdict, if you can make either one of those irrelevant, you're in a great spot.
Yeah. And right now, Jace is just Fog, if Andrew allows it to be. He has it killed on board.
And you've got to believe that Shrout, someone who plays a lot of Magic Online, you see the Magic Online 2012 championship hoodie that he's wearing, you have to believe that he's been in this situation before. So he says, all right, I'm just going to kill Jace, let it be a Fog, and I can move forward with this 3 mana available to bluff a number of things, one of which includes Rootborn Defenses. So Finnegan going to play a Godless Shrine. Does he have a Verdict to pull the trigger on? He just has another copy of Jace. And now, here's some of the power of the green-white deck, because I believe Shrout has a copy of Boonsayer in his hand, and so he can add that to the board now.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he's going to do. So the 4-2 from Theros is going to come into play. It's going to evolve Experiment 1. Shrout quickly untapping. He's attacking Jace. Actually, he's attacking Finnegan. They're actually going to kill him, so I apologize. Going to clear the game off that way. So Andrew Shrout is going to win game number 2. Here with Green-White Aggro. We'll be going to a 3rd and final one. And you see how quickly Shrout plays. He's been around the block here with this deck.
Yeah, very quickly able to do the math there on that Jace and having lethal. And you can see it's, Andrew needs to get in front of him a little bit and be able to add pressure while protecting himself the whole way. He wasn't able to do that in the first game because Erik had too much cheap removal. Andrew was never really able to get a foothold in the game. But once Andrew gets to actually on tap with a board, especially if he's protecting himself with Rootborn Defenses, the game becomes much easier for him. And Erik hiccuped a little bit there. He didn't have nearly the same curve of removal that he had in that first game.
Hey, I mean, that's one of the things that comes along with playing Esper deck too, is that, you do have to have the appropriate amount of removal, but also your lands can come back to really haunt you. They're coming to play tapped, dealing your points of damage, things of that nature. Yeah, you do have a powerful deck, though. Yeah,
when I was playing against Esper at the Black Pro Tour, my feeling in every game I was playing Boros was, I need them to miss one step somewhere.
Sure.
If they hit, their mana works out the right way, if they don't have to take too much damage off their land, if they Azorius Charm me on 3 into Detention Sphere, into Wrath, into whatever, then I'm not going to win the game. But if they miss one step somewhere, then I've got a really good shot. And this green-white deck is the same thing. Will he beat Doomblade into Detention Sphere, into Jace, into, No. Those games are going to be really hard for him to win, especially when he's on the draw. But if Erik's lands are a little finicky, if he doesn't have a kill spell on turn 2, that could be all the opening that Andrew needs to get a huge edge.
Well, we do see both players shuffling up here for game number 3. Didn't even go back to their sideboard, so they're happy with their configurations. And we'll see what's going to happen here, as Finnegan is going to be on the play here for game number 3. Now, don't forget, again, Erik Finnegan, name might seem familiar to you guys. Star City Games Open Series when we were in Cleveland a little while ago, my actual hometown. Believe land, if you will. The river that lights on fire. Now, whatever joke you want to make about my city, he was a champion there with green-white. He did it with green-white. Now he is kind of the bad guy now, playing Esper Control against green-white.
I'm not sure if Esper is really in bad guy status in the format anymore.
Boo. Okay, fine. If the choice is between green-white or anything, green-white's always the good guy. It's the hero that we need. See, Shrout's got a Mistcutter Hydra, he's got a Forest, he's got a Plains. I guess having white border lands makes it easy to identify for us here in the booth exactly how many lands he has.
I don't think this hand is keepable from Shrout, but he's going to keep it.
You're wrong. He's got Celestia Guildgate. Snap keep.
It's keepable insofar as any hand is legally keepable, but 5 lands plus Mistcutter Hydra plus Advent, I think, especially when you've seen counter spells in Erik's list. I suspect this hand's just not going to be good enough to get it done. But he doesn't have a lot of draw sets to put this hand together.
I think his first two draws were lands. We'll see. Here's a
Voice
Resurgence.
I think it was voice land.
Okay. The Tension Sphere rolls off the top here for Finnegan. Does he have blue mana? Okay, he does. There's a Watery Grave. Going to go down to 18 to take care of the voice. Got to get that off the table when you're playing against Selesnya. So D-Sphere does do that as Shrout's going to quickly untap. He'll take a draw. We'll see what he finds. It's a Glare of Heresy, which can turn back on his voice. So that's a nice draw there from Shrout. Temple Garden going to come into play tapped. And there's the Glare.
Yeah,
take care of that.
And now the fight for Andrew is getting on the front foot with mana up. As long as he's trading off this way, Erik gets to make his land drops and eventually get to powerful cards like Revelation and Blood Baron.
The issue here for Shrout is that he needs to get ahead quickly because, as you did mention, there are 4 copies of Blood Baron in Finnegan's deck. Now, Shrout doesn't know that, but he needs to get out ahead very, very quickly because one Blood Baron can spell Doom here for Shrout. You see Finnegan's going to take the top card, put it to the bottom. Does have a Devour Flesh at the ready. Not great against Voice, but if he's going to cast it, he's got to cast it now because he does not want to give Shrout a free token.
He is pinned. He has to operate a lot on his main phase, which is not what the Esper control deck wants to be doing.
Just going to pass the turn back. Shrout draws a card. I believe it was a Selesnya Guildgate. He's got a lot of lands in his hand. Does have Advent of the Worm. Going to play a Plains. Going to attack for 2. Finnegan's going to go down to 16. Shrout's going to pass. He's got Mistcutter Hydra at the ready as well. He's got a lot of lands, though, as Finnegan draws a card. It's a Hallowed Fountain. And that is going to come into play tapped. Finnegan passes. End of turn. Shrout here with an Advent of the Worm.
So we'll see if this induces, I believe there's going to be 2 Devour Flushes cast. He's going to cast it if Andrew Shrout sacrifices the voice in response to the voice trigger, then he can Devour Flush a second time to get the Advent token.
So Finnegan kind of setting him up a little bit here. This is actually very interesting. I wonder what Shrout is going to sacrifice. Because this feels to me like, yeah, he probably has another copy of Devour Flesh. It says in response, Devour Flesh your Worm token, so you're left with just a 1/1. Do you think there's a world where he sacrifices the Advent token there?
If he feels that voice is just pinning a lot of counter spells or something else.
Yeah, okay.
It's a really bold move.
Yeah.
It's a really bold move, but it's not completely unreasonable depending on what Andrew's playing around.
All right, so there is your Voice of Resurgence token. Advent one in the house. Shrout draws another land. He is flooding very, very badly here this game. And I'm sure he doesn't want to pull the trigger on Mistcutter Hydra at this point just as a 4/4, but he might just be forced to.
Yeah. His hand is not really allowing him to do much else.
See, Shrout's love title moves up to 27 from those copies of Devour Flesh. And now he's got to pull the trigger on Mistcutter Hydra as a 4-power creature. Going to come in for 6 points of damage here as Voice of Resurgence token is a 2/2. So Finnegan's going to go down to 10. Finnegan draws his card. I believe the draw was a Doomblade, so Mistcutter Hydra is taking care of it at this point. It's also going to make that Voice Resurgence token a little bit smaller.
Yeah. And Erik really needs to find one of his haymakers. As long as he's just trading 1-for-1 this way, Andrew gets a lot of draw steps, and there's a risk of, Boon Satyrs and Advent of the Worms. If he's able to find a Blood Baron, or if he's able to find a Revelation on a stable board, it becomes very easy. But
so here's a Jace. Finnegan did take 2 to cast that. He's going to tick this up. He's going to pass the turn back. So Shrout's going to draw a card. If Shrout does draw a Rootborn Defense, this is a big draw for him. Looks like it was just another land.
yeah, Erik there did not Doomblade on his main phase.
He says attack. Doomblade's going to take care of that. Voice of Resurgence token going to do nothing because of the Jace trigger. It's just a 1-power creature. Selesnya Guildgate pass the turn back. Shrout's hand are 3 lands. As Finnegan's going to draw his card.
It's possible there that Erik is just not conscious of Rootborn Defenses, because if Shrout had it there, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah. Turns over 3 cards. Doomblade versus. It's going to take the lands. All right, fair enough.
I think this means it's Revelations time.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Shrout going to draw a card. He just wants a spell. He needs a high-impact one. Attack your Jace. That's going to go down to 2. Pass the turn back. Up, there it is. You called it. There's Sphinx Revelation for 4. So Finnegan's going to draw 4 cards and move up to 12 life. And after he untaps all of those lands, he's going to get to draw a 5th card. Verdict, Devour Flesh among the things that he has peeled off the top of his deck. Shrout passes the turn back. You see a Sin Collector added, so he did bring that in.
Yep.
That might be where he does start the turn. And that will be where he starts things off. Shrout's going to show you a hand of Forest, Temple Garden. No action. And now it is safe for Finnegan to cast the Blood Baron of Escopa, tick his Jace up, and pass the turn back. Shrout's going to take a draw. Going to play that Temple Garden, pass the turn. And now you can really see where the momentum lies.
Yeah, no, Erik's got this firm control, handful of removal, Jace still going. It's all just about all elementary at this point.
Jace ticks down. Blood Baron versus is what Shrout's going to say, so lands are going to go to the bottom. Blood Baron's going to go to the grip. Attacks are mostly safe here for Shrout, so in comes the Blood Baron and the Sin Collector. Shrout's going to trade the Elemental token. Blood Baron's going to deal 4. Finnegan's going to come up to a comfortable 16. See, he's going to organize his mana, make sure he knows exactly what he wants to do with it. But he is in the driver's seat.
Blood Baron is so good against such a large range of decks.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
It's a powerful, powerful card. Shrout going to untap, take a draw here. Selesnya Gilgate pass the turn back. Certainly not going to concede, which I do like. Make your opponent kill you, even though if it is a rather hopeless situation, it looks like here. Watergrave going to come into play tap. Jace going to take up. Blood Barons are going to come across. Finnegan's going to go up to 24. Shrout's going to take 8. It's going to go down to 15.
I didn't think Shrout's hand was keepable this game with how land heavy it was, and his draw steps have done nothing to help.
Yeah. And he is going to draw Rootborn Defenses and concede the game. So Erik Finnegan, StarCityGames.com, Standard Open champion in Cleveland at the back end of last year. He's off to a 2-0 start here, your 15th seeded player on our leaderboard. Andrew Shrout, he takes his first loss with green-white aggro. You can believe that he'll bounce back from this, as again, we did see him make the finals in